4 o'clock.
Right on time.
Right on time.
Hey everybody, this is Jimmy Doane Show. Welcome to the show. We do this live twice a week these days, most of the time, at 4 o'clock, Wednesdays and Sundays. You can find us right here on this Facebook channel. Also, I'll post a timestamp copy of this show up on YouTube as soon as I can, hopefully later tonight, with all the subjects timed out so you can just click through them very easily. Also, you can find us on audio format around the web if you search for Doane, D-O-A-N-E, Jimmy Doane. And today is the 29th day of January, the year 2020. I'm in the studio with Dr. D, Dr. Doane.
Here we are.
Hey, hey, hey.
Good deal. You know what I'm glad you do is you announce the date.
Heck yeah, man.
Well, there's a bunch of them that I listen to that you have no idea.
I know.
You really have
halfway
to go
through into 2015 or
something like that. Right, exactly. So anyway, okay, well, we're going to go right in. We're going to barrel right into the impeachment business.
Okay, do
because
it.
I think today, I haven't listened too much today, but today they're supposed to have some discussions or something.
Well, yeah, I guess they're going to decide whether or not they're going to have witnesses.
Well, that's part of it. I do know that the headline here is McConnell doesn't have the votes to block the witnesses.
Yeah, that's the headline on
Well, it's really amazing to me because what he's asking for is 2 or 3 of the Republicans are going to vote to have witnesses.
Yeah.
And that'll be...
it's Romney and...
what's her name from...
Susan.
Susan, yeah.
Yeah, and McAllister.
Yeah, right. So, and there's no way he could bribe them to not have the witness. So they're gonna have witnesses, and of course
It might actually help Trump out if you think about it, because it keeps the senators all occupied sitting in there.
Very true. That is very true. White power. So anyway, no, you're exactly right. I think this is one of those. Another thing I think that's going to totally backfire on these clowns for what they're doing on several levels. Now, I did listen to Pam Bondi's.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did. Now it was, Pam is kind of funny in a way. She was a AG here in Florida, but I've never been crazy about her. I think that
she's as warm as a block of ice.
Boy, isn't that the truth? She's good looking.
Oh, hot! Yeah,
I mean, she's hot, and but I mean, other than that, she's cold.
Cold, yeah, exactly.
So anyway, she was selected, and she gave a 30 or 40-minute presentation which was very slow, very deliberate. She read almost everything, and as far as people were saying, it was out of the park, hit it out of the ballpark.
Both sides are saying the same thing. Oh my God, we had a orgasm party on our guy's speech, and it's like. Come on.
Now I have not listened to the other guy, the guy, I forget what his name is.
Dershowitz.
Yeah, I haven't listened to him.
I did.
Okay. Well,
yes, I've got stuff to say about his stuff. But Pam, I mean, just real quick, she talked about Biden.
Right. Yeah, that was the whole thing was on Biden, right?
Right. And as we talked about before, you can say whatever you want about Hunter Biden, but that guy secured $1.5 billion for his firm. I don't care if he has no experience at all. He earned his money. And I mean, he earned it. He got the money for the firm. That's what he was designed. In there to do. Now, whether he got the position because of the name, who cares? I mean, who cares? How many we have legacy in college and stuff. Oh, your dad went to this college. Great, right. You get in.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
and you graduate.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and you can say what you want about it. I mean, nobody likes nepotism at its core, but if he gets in and then he earns it afterwards, I mean, then it was worth it.
Okay.
Every penny.
All right. Well, okay. Anyway, McConnell doesn't. So they're privately told senators that he doesn't yet have the votes. Apparently, he's going to try and get the votes. He's going to bribe whoever it is.
Right.
You know what? That's what they do. And so, Democrat demands witnesses now that revelations from John Bolton. This is the new stuff.
Bombshell.
That's right. Now, what's interesting, I think we might have talked about this on Sunday a little bit about the book, did we?
I don't think it had.
No, I don't think it had
dropped yet.
It hit Saturday, maybe, but I don't think we talked about it. But at any rate, the deal is that there is a rumor, literally, there's no actual factual.
Yeah.
There's a leak then we don't know how many people were in on the leak. I think Scott Adams said anywhere from 5 to 25 people.
Yeah.
Who knows? And of course, it still hasn't been finished yet.
Yeah.
This is a draft copy, and they're probably not going to go to press until March. So there's all of February.
Look, he submitted the document to the White House for review.
Right, for review.
So how negative can it be?
The other thing is, well, of course, they're screaming top secret on some of this stuff. That's why he did it to the White House, was because it's classified material. Okay. But anyway, the idea is that, and nobody knows the exact wording yet. Of course, nobody can, because it might get changed. Yeah. But the exact wording was this bombshell, supposedly. And of course, all the anti-Trump people are making it as almost a direct quote. Yes, I was in the room, and that's what he said, and it was absolutely quid pro quo.
And as we've talked about several times, the quid pro quo does not make it illegal. It has to be an improper quid pro quo.
Right.
And then that goes to motive. And then you get back to Schiff's testimony, who flat out said that Trump believed the Ukraine situation, that is, they were involved in the election somehow. And so from Schiff's testimony, the investigation was about 2016.
Yeah.
So
anyway, the other deal is that what we're trying to figure out is that they're thinking that maybe each side will be able to select a witness or two. Okay, so right off the bat, the Republicans have got they've got a big pot to choose from. I mean, Schiff they could call on, first of all. They can call on Biden.
I wonder if they could call Schiff as a witness. I mean, he's the House manager. It's just so weird. It's like he's the prosecutor there. I mean, I think they should be able to.
It seems like they should.
I don't see any prohibition against it. But
no, and they can call, of course, they can call Hunter. They can call, and I suppose they could call Joe.
Right.
But if they called Schiff, of course, you might want to grab up some video where he said, "I've absolutely got in my hand the stuff." Then of course it never showed up. I mean, on more than one occasion, he said he had absolute uncontrovertible proof that this is what. And you might just say, "Well, do you have it now?" Or there's that kind of stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff and you got to ask yourself then, if the Dems are going to get to call two people, who are they going to call? I mean...
Well, they're going to call John Bolton.
Oh, right, okay.
And Mick Mulvaney, or Rick Mulvaney.
Okay, right, yes, okay, those are the two.
Right. And what they want to get out there is the words quid pro quo 10 times.
Right.
And then contrast that with, or get out something that contradicts what Trump said, so that it looks like Trump and Bolton are at odds, factually speaking, and then therefore, believe Bolton over Trump. Right. But either way, this stuff, man, it doesn't matter. If you watched Dershowitz's thing, Dershowitz spent 1 hour and absolutely obliterated the impeachment, from my perspective, and from a lot of people. Look, he did exactly what we've been talking about, which is he went back through the literature, he traced the words going back hundreds of years, talked about their meaning, talked about the intent of the founders. He made the best case you could possibly make about what the Constitution is supposed to say about impeachment. The problem is you still got the word misdemeanor in there.
Right.
And then you had all the people on the other side come out and say, "Oh my God, Dershowitz doesn't know what he's talking about." And I mean, to me, there's
hard to believe. This is Dershowitz.
No, I know.
So he doesn't know. This is the preeminent attorney on the planet.
Seriously,
and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Exactly, I know. It doesn't. The attacks, when they attack him and they say stuff like that, it makes them look like fools.
Of course.
If they want to attack his actual position, they can do that, and they have, and I think they will continue to. And that's what the position. The opposite side is obviously Maxine Waters' position, which is to say. She said, "Look, we can impeach for any reason. It's whatever we vote for." And she's right. At the end of the day, unfortunately, although Dershowitz is absolutely right in terms of what was supposed to be in the Constitution, you still got the words in there, and you still got the procedure sitting there, and there's no check on them voting to remove for whatever reason they want to remove. I don't think the Supreme Court justice, sitting in his capacity as presider, can say, "No, you guys you didn't make it." And that's one of the differences between this and a trial. We've talked about many times, this is not a trial.
No, it's not.
And one of the differences is that in a trial, a judge can look around and say, you know what, this whole thing stinks. Everybody go home. And just throw the whole thing out. You guys didn't meet the law. You guys didn't meet the law. Nobody met the law. It's over. And I don't think the Supreme Court justice can do that. Now, here's the interesting thing. What if he does?
Well, that's right. Well, the other thing is, they're open. But this is the same thing that I talked about last time. Is when Harry Reid decided to invoke the nuclear option, and it came back to bite his ass in the very next thing. I mean, so if they start to say you can impeach for anything, look out. That means at any time the House, especially if the House and the Senate are held by the same party, the president might as well just pack up and go home. I would not unpack my bags if I were president.
I literally think that's where we're at right now. I don't think that there's any distinction between that. Because look, even if they come out and say, well, we're voting for the removal, but we're really doing it based on our true convictions of the... No, you're not. Or if you are, then you don't understand the Constitution. Because Dershowitz laid it out. And there's no getting around what he said, which is basically that these articles simply do not meet the standard. They don't get there. And there's only 2 articles. And then you got these people like Lawrence Tribe and Jeffrey Toobin, other professors at Harvard. It's the war of the Harvard professors. And they're coming out and saying, well, there's real reasons. There's other reasons why you can impeach. And they totally missed Dershowitz's point, which is that, yeah, there are. You didn't put him in the impeachment articles.
Right.
There's 2 articles. Yeah. One of them, the second one, is just absolutely no attorney could possibly argue the second one, which is obstruction of Congress. They try to impeach Trump for invoking the Supreme Court, for invoking the courts to rule on an issue. There's no way you can square that with our laws in any way. In the first article about the abuse of power goes to motive. It has to go to motive. That's the only thing there. And you can't parse out, you can't say, well, like Nadler was trying to do, well, what was the real reason why he did the investigation?
Reading the mind.
Well, yeah, and it's this reason, even forget about, that's a 10% no, that's a 90% of the reason why you did it. When you start parsing it out like that, the whole point is, if there is one path that is reasonable that he might have been investigating for, that is to say, maybe he was investigating the 2016 election and that kind of corruption. If you believe that that's a possibility, then by the standard of the law, which is beyond a reasonable doubt, as articulated by Dershowitz, you have to acquit him because it's a reasonable hypothesis consistent with innocence.
This is not the aliens came down from the moon hypothesis.
No, this is something very reasonable. Like if you don't admit that it's even a possibility that he was investigating 2016, then I think you're just blinding yourself. And so, but I think that they're going to do that. I think that the Democrats are going to vote for the impeachment, for the removal. I don't think you're going to see what you should see, which is a 90-10 split in the vote against. I think that anybody who's a lawyer on the Democrat side, if they were being honest and they would do what Dershowitz said, which is use the shoe on the other foot test and ask yourself, if it was a Democratic president, would you vote for this stuff? And I don't think they're going to do that. And so they're going to vote for the removal. And I think we've entered the phase that you've just talked about, which is we're now in a parliamentary system whereby they're going to remove or try to remove the president every single election if the House is different from the presidency. Right.
Well, the other thing is, of course, what would be interesting in a way, and this is one of these wild speculation kind of things, is they have to get 67 senators to do their. That ain't going to happen. I mean, you can get your Susan Collins. Well, okay, let's say they do.
Right.
Let's say they do.
Yeah.
And the president has to move out.
Right.
And Pence is now president.
Right. Impeach him.
Well, first of all, that's one.
Yes.
But and then who is it? Nancy comes next?
Nancy comes next.
Okay.
Look, that's exactly the path that they should go. I mean, in the cynical view of the Democrats, that is to say, if you look at them and you think they're doing this for political reasons, then if they get Trump out, they literally should file the impeachments against Pence the next week and say, well, he was in on the whole thing. He was in on it. He was abusing his power as well. Let's get him out and move Nancy in.
Well, of course, they would have to go through the whole thing again.
Sure,
which is kind of interesting, I suppose. But then the remaining Senate would have to vote to get Pence out.
Right.
Okay. Okay, and then Nancy will be in there. But here's the thing is, there's two things to consider here. So they boot Trump out.
Right.
He can still run.
Well, I agree.
And not only that, I think he can run for a quote third term.
Oh yeah,
If he didn't finish his first term. No, seriously, he didn't finish his first term.
Right.
So now, let's say he gets reelected in November.
Yeah.
This coming November. That'll be his first term.
Right.
So that's through 2024.
Right.
And then, of course, if they during that time they're going to impeach him again, obviously, unless by some wild something the Senate has 4 or 5 more Republicans, or they turn the House over to Republicans.
Well, that's all it would require them taking up, because they're not going to leave it alone. This is and why would they? I think that we're going to see just a constant impeachment effort from now on going forward.
As the country goes down the toll, as somebody was saying, the stuff there's stuff out there that actually matters.
Well, I actually think this is a good thing from the standpoint of
Really?
occupying their time. Then they can't be out there
That's
passing BS little laws against this and that. And the only way they're going to get everybody back into the House chambers to do some actual work is if a vast majority of the people agree on what they're trying to do. So it could be a nice little distraction for the entire Congress. Go ahead, knock yourselves out. Do it all the time. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's just have a constant running impeachment trial.
Of course, the thing is, so the government's shut down, and what are we going to do? We just stand around blindly? No, we're actually going to go on with our lives.
Exactly.
Is what we're gonna
It's
do.
going to be better.
I'm still going to go shopping.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't see how. To me, that doesn't bother me a bit, and I don't even mind if we got to the more or less parliamentary system. I mean, if they were able to just remove him and then everybody were to settle down, that would be one thing. But I don't think we're going there. I think we're getting to the point of where it's gonna come down to a contest of wills, and that gets a little bit dangerous because, like I said, what if the Supreme Court justice just says, "Hey, you guys didn't meet the standard. I'm throwing out the articles of impeachment." Bam, and he bangs the gavel. What do?
They appeal to the court.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
They appeal to the court.
I mean, what can you do? I mean, at some point, somebody's got to start sending the marshals out.
Yeah.
And the question is, who's that going to be, and for what purposes?
And of course, the marshal, like, let's say both sides send the marshal.
Exactly.
I mean, the marshals are this marshal, and that, I mean, this is a bit of a problem.
A little bit. Now, the good news is the courts actually legally control the marshals.
Is that right?
Yeah, like the statute says. I mean, when you open up the statute of the sheriff's department here for the state of Florida, the very first line of the creation of the sheriff says, "You shall obey the orders of the court."
Okay.
It doesn't say follow the laws of the state first. It says obey the orders of the court first. And so that is powerful, and that'll keep the marshals in line a bit. But the argument will be made, I'm confident, that they would have to impeach the Chief Justice now because he's abused his power and gone along with the corruption.
Well, not only that, what happens if before the Supreme Court gets around to it, what happens if the lower courts start to get their marshals out there?
Well, and I mean,
the Ninth Circuit says go to.
Well, the upper court, I would imagine, can overrule the lower court's use of the marshals. But still, it's interesting to see how the whole thing is sort of crumbling at this point. And I blame the House leaders because they should know that this is a sham. They should know.
Yeah.
If they don't know, I mean, I'm sure there are some people on their side who really don't know. The non-lawyers are sitting around going, well, I don't know, it says we can impeach, and so we voted to impeach. But the lawyers have got to know. The lawyers have got to be sitting there, all the lawyers except maybe Elizabeth Warren, who apparently has no clue about law. She came out and said that there was no basis for what Dershowitz said in law or fact. All right, you want to turn that off? That's 4.
That unfortunately doesn't turn it off.
Just do the silence thing. She came out and said Dershowitz has no basis in whatever he's doing, and Dershowitz came out and said if she knew anything about criminal law, she could have followed it. She came out and said I couldn't follow what his argument was. And Dershowitz, of course, said, well, that says more about her than it does about me, because anybody could follow that. And a lot of people, you can see the Twitter comments, people were, well, I'm a secretary and I could follow it. I mean, it was well done, as you would expect. This guy knows how to argue. He knows what the law is. He knows the authorities to cite. And if you are in any way an adherent to our laws, then you should follow what that guy said, because nobody has made the counter argument yet, and we'll see. The counter argument is going to be Maxine Waters, who's going to say, well, impeachment is whatever we say it is.
Yeah.
But that is not a legal standard, and what they should ask the House managers is, what acts by a president would not be impeachable at this point? Under your theories, are there any acts at all, wrongdoing, anything that you can think of that a president couldn't be impeached for? And I'd be interested to see what they say, but I haven't heard anybody ask the question.
Answer that question. No, it's it's funny. I'm thinking of this as I just started watching on YouTube. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon, and of course that was illegal, but he did it anyway. I mean, then when you think about that, I was thinking about the parallels between what's going on here, it's the collapse and so forth as he came in and so forth. It was all kind of interesting to see. Pompey did this, and the generals and all the battalions were this, that, and the other. I was thinking this is actually kind of a relation to what's happening in a way today as things disintegrate around strictly partisan politics. Nothing, and it's politics. It's nobody's hanging their hat except Dershowitz on anything that's legal.
Right.
And so they're just going to march on in there maybe if they can get away with it and do it anyway.
That's what it seems like at this point.
So anyway, okay, moving on. This has to do also with the coming up election here.
Okay.
In not too long. The Democrats are tormented on how to stop Bernie.
The Democrat, yeah, exactly.
When mainstream Republicans scoffed at the idea that Donald Trump would ever win the nomination until he became unstoppable, only this time it's happening from the left. And they're starting to panic because they saw how the Republicans wait too long, and then he was nominated. And then they still were scoffing. Everybody was scoffing up until the night of the election. And this guy's not going to make it. And so the Democrats are now saying, wait a minute, we've seen this act before. And so they're caught in, it says here, caught in a catch-22. Attack Sanders and risk galvanizing his supporters and turning him into a martyr for the far left, or leave him alone and watch him continue to gather momentum. Bennett blamed the media for not holding, whoever this guy Bennett is, I don't know, blamed the media for not holding Sanders to the same standard as Warren. They let him get away with murder, he said. They let him bluster past hard questions, which he does. I mean, because it had to do primarily with how you're going to pay for it. And this has been, a bugaboo for Warren to some extent. She's kind of danced around a little bit, but Bernie has basically, gone over the thing, and nobody's held him to task for how you're going to pay for it.
Well, they haven't really asked him the hard questions yet, which is stuff like, do you believe in private property? And would you nationalize
private property?
I know, but it doesn't matter. His philosophy is such that the state owns things. Yeah. I mean, he's a communist. Let's face it.
He is. Yeah.
And his concept is the state is the preeminent thing, and it's going to take care of people. And so the question is, what industries would you nationalize?
Yeah.
What executives would you jail? What industries would you just collapse entirely to get rid of? I mean, there's a whole bunch of really interesting questions, but what you brought up is interesting because Bernie is seemingly in the lead now.
Oh, across the board. What's interesting, it says the enthusiasm for Sanders was on display at Iowa on Sunday when over 1,000 people turned out to rally, co-hosted by Ocasio-Cortez and Michael Moore.
Right.
So these are, and of course now Joe Rogan has they got him on board, sort of, pretty much, whatever. What does it really matter? But the thing that I look at is Bernie it's still a little too early to say, but Iowa's next week.
I know. Yeah.
So I mean, if he, what's interesting? I was going back through some of the videos that were made when Trump was coming into winning primaries and so forth and so on, and other people. They were talking about going back to the 60s and 70s when people were winning Iowa and then you win Iowa, New Hampshire, and then it's off. Now they have the big mo, and if you win, that and Nevada and South Carolina, and all that amounts to about 4 electoral votes, and yet you've won. No.
Don't you? You don't think? You really think that the Democratic Party is going to let Bernie take the nomination?
This is what's going to be very interesting because it'll be fascinating because one of the things it is, which he claims that he got screwed last time.
Of course he did,
because of the superdelegates.
Right,
but. They changed the rules, and apparently the superdelegates can only vote on the second ballot.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but if it'll be fascinating theater to watch this.
Yes.
I mean, really, this will be so much fun. I'm just saying that it'll be fascinating to watch the breakup of the Democratic Party completely.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a breakup, but it'll be a big fight. And the interesting thing is that it's almost like on the horizon from the standpoint of, look, if Bernie's in the lead, serious question, do you really think the Democrats would let Bernie get the nomination?
Well, let me just say this. The Republicans weren't going to let Trump get it. They had an array of people. They had the super heavyweights. I mean, Jeb came to Florida and spent $100 million.
Well, so you're saying that you don't know if they can stop him. If he really gets the mo, if he's really out and ahead by 10 points or something.
Yes, a possibility. I see it as I would like to know how they would marshal their forces to stop him.
Oh well, you just said, superdelegates.
Well, yeah.
All you have to do.
But what happens if he makes it through the first ballot? That is to say, what happens if he gets the majority on the first ballot? Now, I'll tell you one thing that might stop him, and that is Bloomberg, of course, is going to try and buy his way into it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, the Democratic National Convention is still a very powerful and consolidated organization.
Right.
And I just don't know if they will embrace Bernie even if he's way out ahead. I don't know if because they'll be conceding some power.
Boy, a lot of it too, because I mean that's the thing you have to understand. First of all, he's an independent at this point, so somehow he wins the Democratic nomination, and then you might start to ask yourself who's going to be his VP, but it's no big deal. But I think you're right about one thing: there's too many obstacles for him to be nominated.
From what perspective? Like,
well, there's too many people that there's Biden and there's a bunch of people that are more middle of the roadish type people that could probably derail him. And the other thing is, if it gets to be a brokered convention, that is, if California and some of these other states have their delegates go to somebody else, well, then it's going to be a brokered convention. Well, as soon as it's a brokered convention, that means pretty much nobody wins on the first round, and then the superdelegates come in.
And then they give it to somebody like Hillary or
Hillary, yeah.
I still think there's a real possibility of Hillary to come in. Warren seems to be imploding a bit.
Yeah, she does.
I think her lies are coming back to haunt her. I think everybody is at this point seeing her as a disingenuous person. You can go back through her statements over the last decade or so, and you can find a whole bunch of stuff that
really flip-flops.
Well, it's not just flip-flop. It's contradiction. It's things that she says at one point that are proven to be false. I mean, everything from the recipe that she said, this is my home recipe.
This is on the soup can.
Exactly. And then I didn't use my Native American thing to get the position at Harvard. And yes, I'm Native American, and it's one.
Well, I can, I tell you this truth, believe it or not, I can understand if her whole family, growing up from when she was first thing, and they said, you're part Indian.
Yeah.
And I can understand that she might have believed it.
I totally can as well. But here's the thing: you start stacking these things up, and it makes her look as though
she's disingenuous.
Exactly. And you stuff like the fired for her pregnancy thing. And you just go on and on. And I'm going to pay for this without raising taxes. And meanwhile, Bernie's sitting right next to her says, I got the same plan. It's going to cost you guys money. how do you square those things? And when you put and Bernie said this, women can't get elected, and when you put her up against Bernie for truth and honesty, I think she loses every single time.
That's what Michael Moore said.
Yeah.
He said, he said that Warren, he crossed Warren off his list when she did something, I forget what it was, but he says the one thing about Bernie is he is consistent.
Absolutely.
From being mayor on up, he's been 100% consistent.
Exactly. And I don't think she can survive a head-to-head with him like that, but then, like you said, there's still Biden. Biden's still floating around.
Yeah.
And I've said the whole time, I think he's the deep threat, and so to Trump, and it's just I think that the Democrats, the DNC, is going to pull out all of the stops to try to prevent Bernie from getting the nomination. Because look, the thing is that at his core, he's anti-capitalist.
Right.
Elizabeth Warren at least comes out and says, "Oh, capitalism's in my bones," which again, pure lie.
Yeah.
Or at least she doesn't understand capitalism.
No,
and so, but Bernie, they know he's a socialist, and he would literally dismantle huge portions of the economy. Well, a lot of those people are Democrats. I mean, you start throwing executives from the tech industry in jail because they're billionaires and he believes they're crooks. And all of a sudden you're throwing high-powered Democrats in jail, billionaire Democrats in jail. I mean, do they really want to take the chance of going down that road? Of course, obviously if they scuttle Bernie again, then they're going to have to, and then they lose, then it's going to be really interesting, because then the Byrne people, I don't know what they would do, but they would, I think, be very upset. And
they're running around with their hair on fire.
Yeah, I don't know what else you can do. I mean, he's not going to run 4 years from now. No. They're going to run AOC.
And I saw where Biden said, he said he was going to maybe think about selecting somebody younger and of color or something like that, and Scott Adams came out and said it should be Kamala.
Yeah.
And because and he already said, I'm old. And
yeah. Well, and she is. She's a young woman of color, right. So it's perfect opposite
there you go.
To him. And also, as Scott pointed out, she's even less charismatic than Biden is somehow.
Right, yeah, well, that's the whole idea. You certainly can't choose somebody better than you.
Not really.
No.
And she is like a stick in the mud in every way. So, laugh at her own jokes kind of a person. So, but that's the Biden ticket. I still think it could do very well, but they would have to get rid of Bernie. And
well, it won't be long. I mean, seriously, Super Tuesday is March 3rd, I think.
Yeah.
So we're talking about just about a month from now.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens.
Before we move on, I just want to. Scott says that Dershowitz is a hired gun and that he would say anything. And to that I say, yeah, but you got to look at what he did say. What he didn't come out and say.
He's a lawyer. All lawyers are hired guns.
Well,
that's what you do.
Well, the implication is that he would sort of fudge the facts or something. But again, all you have to do is listen to what he said. It's a very clear legal argument.
Yeah.
And he stressed over and over again. He came out and said, "I voted for Hillary, and if Hillary were the president, I'd be making this exact same argument." And so he will next time.
Yeah.
As they impeach whoever it is that gets elected next time. Now, interestingly, this will make the vice presidential pick kind of important.
Yeah.
Because if the House is going to impeach whoever the president is, then at least for a short period of time, the vice president's going to be the president.
Yeah.
So, until they can get impeached. So
it'll be great fun. All right, we're going to move on here. We're going to move on to China.
Okay, back to China.
Back to China. Tears, fear, panic grip China as coronavirus spreads. One of the things that I was thinking about, I was reading through some of the information about this. Shared grief, suspicion, and multiplying tensions have seized this nation. And I saw where a guy who's a Chinese real follower, he's lived in China, he speaks all the lingo and everything, he's got friends in China. He's a local, I say local, he's an American. And he said, you can't possibly believe what these people are telling us. It does appear that this thing is that the Chinese government let everybody down. They didn't pop on it as fast as they could, and suddenly this is exponential. what's going on here is exponential. Somebody was saying by the end of February, a couple 100,000 people could be infected. Even though there's like supposedly 1,000 or 2,000 now. But anyway, a steady stream of inspirational reports about the heroic Chinese. I saw the head of China get up there and say, "Hooray for us!" and had everybody cheering him back about how they're really holding strong. China's doing well and so forth. Uniting to fight the unseen enemy, confident in the party's leadership. Over and over again, the government repeats, "Trust us. Be calm. Wash your hands. Stay home." But what I'm wondering is if what we've seen is that the airlines are canceling flights.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that is now not going to come out of China.
Right.
And not go into China. There's all kinds of flights being canceled right and left. Is this the black swan?
Well,
is this now we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Something that is completely out of the blue that suddenly causes the entire economy to collapse.
If it were to kill upwards of 100,000 or 1 million people, then I think it could theoretically be. But I don't see this as being that big, at least at this point. From what we've been told, the mortality rate is less than the Spanish flu. It's 0.01% or something, which is, I mean,
well,
you think about
this is what they know so far.
Well, and
of
this
course,
is also
the official.
Exactly information coming from China.
Right.
But look, Ebola, the mortality rate is like 65% or something.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you get it. It's
You're
bad.
Gonna die.
Exactly. At least the odds are against you. But this is just like a bad flu at this point. This is something where, okay, if you get it, maybe if you're sick or weak or old or too young or something, maybe you can have some problems, or if you don't take good care of your health after that, then okay, it drags you down. But and we're still in the early phases. But
this is the key. Though,
yeah.
Is that forget the deaths part, forget the mortality. You get a couple 100,000 or 1 million people that have it, that get it. And it's spreading, and you can see where it's spreading. It's going to disrupt everything.
Well, here's the thing. What you have now, you're right from the standpoint of even people like Scott Adams is calling for closing the border.
Right.
Close it, shut it down. And he's all upset. He can't believe that they're not closing the border. We're talking about a country we have $500 billion worth of trade with. There's a lot of lives that depend on that $500 billion.
Daily.
Exactly. And so you would have to kill people today to save potential future people later. You would disrupt all these change. I'll bet you there's people who are relying on drugs getting back and forth between America and all kinds of stuff. And they're forgetting about the livelihood. And also, look, so you don't have to close the border down because all the individual people are making individual decisions. That is to say, the airlines, as you say, they're canceling their flights because pilots, I'm sure, are saying, I'm not flying to China.
Well, not only that, they're also canceling because the number of people signing up for their flights has dropped way off.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what I talked about before was the market.
The market.
The market will figure it out. And
That's right.
Mrs. Jimmy said, no, not
close the border, shut it down, shut it all down. And what they don't understand is, look, there's a lot of very smart people considering their own personal interests that are involved in these decisions. And they're going to weigh out. They know what you know about the coronavirus. So why can't they make their decision about their individual airline or plane or flight or trade? Well,
one of the things that does happen, and this is what we've always done from day one, when you're talking about public health,
right?
That really has come under the purview of the government across the board.
I agree, but you're only... And when we conceive of public health having control, we think of things like Ebola or bubonic plague. We think of something that if no authority runs in there and bombs the village today, that it'll be a pandemic next week and we'll have millions dead. Well, that is just unrealistic from the standpoint of the way that diseases work. You would have to have just the worst thing possible. And even with the worst thing possible, we've dealt with that.
Yeah.
We can deal with those bugs. And so we have means, we have hospitals, we have drugs, all kinds of stuff. And so there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to shut down everything if we just simply treat everybody who's there. This may go away just like SARS or the West Nile virus or all these other things that...
Maybe, but of course what they're thinking is, there are a lot of people who said that if there's going to be a wipeout of the human race, it's going to be for some bug that evolves, because they mutate about every hour.
Well, that's the thing, is that you could have a system where, as we talked about, if the bug mutated just right and was able to mutate in a way that created an incubation period where it was still communicable but yet non-detectable, then sure, you could have the virus spread throughout a large population before it manifested into symptoms, and then all of a sudden 1 billion people die or something like that. But look,
the ecologists will be all happy about this. There's too many people
and the population control people.
That's
right?
it. That's what I'm saying.
Look, here's the thing. You look back through our history as a planet, and you think about the squalor that hordes have lived in for centuries, and ask yourself, really, today, with our technology, today it's going to break out?
Well, it is interesting. This guy that was, I telling you, that was the Chinese, he wasn't a Chinese, he's an American, who's spent a whole lot of time. He had a big thing on YouTube about this, what was going on, and how you couldn't trust the Chinese people. He says he was reading the thing at the bottom, the Chiron or whatever it was at the bottom of the Chinese thing, and he says that they use the word cured for people that recovered.
Oh, okay.
He said the Chinese word they used was cured, indicating that they have a cure.
Right.
Well, not so much.
I don't know if that's translation or misinformation.
No, that's what he said.
Right.
No, he said they deliberately swited it to cured.
Right.
Because
as opposed to healed or something.
as if they had a thing.
Yeah. Well.
So anyway, just to so we're talking about the airlines that have canceled all their flights and everything. But what's interesting is that a lot of the flights that have been canceled are to Shanghai and Beijing, but they still are going to operate to Hong Kong.
Yeah, well, I heard Hong Kong may be cutting rail lines from...
Right, I don't know, but what I'm saying is apparently, and one of the things that I don't know is that once, I saw a map, one of the things you can draw up on your flight map in Florida of the United States, and you see all the air that's in the air right now. Well, they did one over China.
Okay.
And there's 1,000 planes, 2,000 planes in the air at any given time all over China.
Oh, yeah.
And they're flying there's almost as many as we have here.
More, actually. The traffic just passed ours.
Oh, is that right?
West. Yeah.
Okay, well, at any rate, one of the things you have to realize is that 1 million people got out of Wangtang or whatever it was for the
Wangchung.
Yeah, that's right.
Wangchung province.
And so, anyway, and so, and they got out. Well, if only 100,000 of them are infected and they went to all points, this could be a big deal.
It could be. It still could be. I don't. It would have to be literally the Goldilocks virus for it to get out like that and really become the black swan event that we're talking about. I think it would have to kill upwards. You think about it. There's 1 billion people in China.
Right.
If it killed 1 million people.
Yeah.
That's 0.1%.
Well, there probably 1 million people die every day anyway in China.
Well, yeah. Well,
that's just a normal mortality.
Right. I mean, the big thing would be the fear and a closure.
Right. That's the thing.
Overreaction by.
That's what they were talking about here.
Right.
People are running around screaming, and the.
All right. Let's nuke them.
Yeah, let's nuke them. Well, I thought it was interesting that
take care of that virus.
Starbucks here. Now, this is what I was talking about, the black swan. Starbucks is closed over 50% of its stores in China.
And I heard McDonald's shut down.
Right, shut down. That's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is going to hit their bottom line a little bit.
It could, but they could, these closures. Look, all they have to do is keep them closed for a couple of weeks to see what the real ramifications are. Because
what if the real ramifications are people flopping dead in the street? Then you got Kentucky Fried Chicken. You got all the franchises that are over there that are suddenly going to shut down.
Well, and not only them, but also big multinationals. I mean, you're not going to send your CEO over there to make a deal.
Bob, look, I tell you, I'm going to give you a promotion. You go.
Here's a mask.
Yeah, here's a mask. Well, the other thing, I was watching this. Of course, they're out of masks. A lot of them are out. They were talking about sold out everywhere. And unfortunately, I was also seeing where the masks that generally people use are the ones that I use when I go to the hospital, but they don't protect against this. I mean, a virus is small. It's not a bacteria. This is a virus.
Yeah.
And if it's that communicable, your little dorpy paper mask is not going to make it.
Well, I think we'll know within a matter of 2 weeks whether or not this is going to be a real serious threat or just another serious flu that sort of peters out.
When you start to close down on-demand businesses like Kentucky Fried Chicken and Starbucks or something, now all the trucks are stopped.
Right, because they can't get
and
food.
The warehouses are stopped. Right. And I mean, it goes way out. You know, it's not just the hired help at the Starbucks.
Right.
It's everybody that supplies them is going to stop.
Oh yeah, and also the loans, things like that. You know, all that stuff is built on speculation about what's going to be produced, and if you're thinking that the province is going to go down the tubes, then there could be a huge stop of capital.
That's what I'm saying. This don't. I'm calling possible black swan on this.
You're calling.
That's what I'm calling.
Possible. I'll give you possible.
Okay. All right. Going to move along here real quick here to. I did bring out a thing here that climate change could lead to more injuries and deaths. Now, this article is a fairly extensive research article. And it says the research analyzes the number of deaths from injury in the U.S., excluding Hawaii and Alaska, between 1980 and 2017 and compared them to unusual temperature changes each month. They went through this whole thing, and the research predict an additional 1,600 injury-related deaths.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Oh, oh my! Here it's like a virus, for God's sakes.
Right.
It's horrible. They went, but based on current policies, it's unlikely. And then they said, but that's unlikely to happen. That's even their own.
Right.
I'm going to read this. This is not a story.
That's clickbait. Is what
I know.
That's somebody called their editor called up the reporter and said, "Listen, I need you to create a story." Which is total clickbait. And what you do is first say it's going to be horrible,
right?
And then at the end of the story, take it back.
Yeah, and
then there you go.
Yeah. But the other thing is that we do have the preeminent climatologist, John Cusack.
Oh, okay, yeah.
John Cusack says we have 10 to 12 years to save the planet from climate and capitalism.
Oh.
Yeah. We know this form of capitalism takes. It takes whatever, whenever, however it wants. It'll take our lives.
It only gives you back is money.
Huh? It'll take our labor, our spirit, our air and water, and even our earth. Now, this is Cusack, who's probably...
What does he mean, our earth?
I don't know what he's talking about.
He thinks he owns the earth?
I don't know.
He thinks the humans own the earth? Is that what he thinks?
Yeah, right. You know, I got news for you, John. The earth don't give a shit about humans.
It's the giraffes.
Yeah.
It's just...
Anyway, I just thought this was interesting, that this is another one of the Hollywood elites coming out he's in the super top 0.001%.
Right.
And people, and they wrote this article as if it matters.
Look, the news is all deteriorated into one person's opinion at this point. Every time I see something, like I saw the other day, somebody was upset because the Des Moines Register endorsed Warren, and I'm thinking, no. One guy at the Des Moines Register said, we're going to endorse Warren. That's what happened.
Might have even taken a vote among three.
Sure, it was a committee with one guy at the top of the committee. Yeah, exactly. Three of them, right, yeah.
2-1.
Exactly. We're in. And so, So, look, you can't, and I don't think anybody at this day and age is thinking, well, I think if the newspaper supports that person, I think I'll go along with that. Like, maybe. But to me, it's all just one person.
I'll tell you, with our newspaper here, the way you pick
the opposite.
100%. Our newspaper is so screaming commie liberal. It's like it shouldn't be called the Gainesville Sun. It should be called Provident. Mm-hmm. That's how bad it is. And whenever they endorse anybody, you know right away I'm voting for the other guy. I don't care if the other guy is a communist. It can't be as bad as the guy there and calling for to endorse. Mm-hmm. So anyway, moving along to another item.
Okay.
I thought this was kind of interesting. The government subsidized phone comes with malware.
Oh yes.
Did you see this? I mean, it's an Android device. So fortunately, I'm an iPhone user. So, but the FCC's Lifeline Assistance Program, which makes free or subsidized phones available to millions of low-cost. Now, this was the Obama phone.
Okay.
Originally, this is what this was, because it was in 2008. But interestingly enough, the malware that installs these programs is hidden in the phone's setting app. That makes it virtually impossible to uninstall, since the phone can't operate properly without it. And this is from the moment you log onto the mobile device, it starts doing whatever it's doing. But it's malware. It's a spyware of some kind. So you pay $35 a month, and you can't turn it off.
Right.
You can't extract it. And I'm thinking, boy, gee willikers. You mean a government something doesn't work right? I tell you, boy, I don't see that because they're the god.
Yeah, well, it's
Comes
just
with malware.
It's just another giveaway. But look, let
me tell you,
take the Queen's shilling. And,
yes, exactly right.
and-
You take the Queen's shilling, you do the Queen's bidding.
And so now the phone. Look, if anybody who has a phone thinks they have any privacy at all,
Anyway, right.
you're done.
You can't even turn them off and have privacy.
No. As we talked about a couple shows ago, it pings everywhere. But
That's why I told people this one. Just hold your thought.
sure.
But this is why when you go into 7-Eleven and you buy a little bag of crisps.
Right.
When you're done, you put your phone in there, seal it up. Now they can't pay.
Well, what you do,
of course, can't make calls either.
Right. Well, I think what people will do is they'll have decoy phones.
Yeah.
So you'll get one phone and you'll put that phone like in your car and you just leave it there. And then wherever the car goes, that's where they think you are, or you can send it places, or leave it at home,
Well,
and then you have another phone. You have a burner phone for whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. Well, they did that in what was it? They did it in was it Number 5 is Alive, or one of those things where they threw the phone into this guy's truck going the other way.
Right, yeah.
And the cops surrounded him, and it's this guy, this farmer and his old lady, and they're just coming along. What?
Yeah, and I gotta think that is the future. What you'll probably be able to buy is not a phone, but like a little electronic ping device or something.
Yeah.
And now, interestingly, Mizzou, the college, has just instituted a plan whereby they've asked their students to carry their phones to class so that they can check attendance.
Right.
And download an app so
Well,
it keeps track
I
of
think
them.
they're required to download the app.
Right. And so then you do that. Now, I wonder how close it is. Like if I give my phone to somebody else to bring to class, so that it registers my thing. Will they be able to say, well, these two phones tracked too closely together?
They're not going to figure that out.
I mean, you might be able to see.
They're in the classroom.
Well, not only that, but what I'm thinking is two people walking together. Their phones would ping the same as if one person was carrying two phones.
Well, what I would do, sir, you got a business here. Let me tell you, those
Exactly. I'll come collect your phone.
That's it. I'll take it over there. Here's what I'm going to do. This is the auditorium with 500 people in
That's
there.
right. There's one guy.
And it's one
with
guy
a bag of phones.
Bag of phones.
Well, we used to do that in law school. People would do that. They would bring a laptop, and so you look around the class, and there would be a person, and then in one seat there would just be a laptop, and the laptop would have its camera focused on the guy or whatever, and then somebody would go collect the laptop and bring it to whomever.
Right. Well, they did that in a movie. I saw that in a movie one time where the professor was standing up there, and you look.
Yeah,
all laptops.
Exactly.
Oh my
Yeah.
God,
So that's
funny.
real.
That is funny. So anyway, okay. Let's see. Next item. Let's see how we're doing here. Let me.
Oh, we got Jack Rhodes.
Jack's in. Okay, good deal. Let me just see here if there's another thing here.
I had a real quick one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Light note, literally. A man, did you see this? A man lights up a marijuana cigarette in the courtroom.
In the courtroom, yes.
While he's being sentenced for possession of marijuana, he whips out an instant cult classic move. This guy will be accepted VIP at Burning Man and everywhere he goes from now on.
Yeah.
His last name is Boston, and a big smile on his face in his mugshot picture because he knows he's going to be in the encyclopedia next to civil disobedience.
So he was, of course, smoking in the courtroom is probably an offense.
Oh, sure.
So is he going to spend time in jail or what?
Well, yeah, they booked him right then on the new charge, and of course he'll get convicted on the old charge. But again, it's Boston, and it's Massachusetts, that is, and it's also it's marijuana.
Okay.
And people are at the point now where they're not doing anything for that. We just got a notice from our sheriffs up in Tallahassee that they're not arresting people for that anymore, for possession of marijuana.
Good.
So it's just like, hey.
Okay. Let's see. PETA has called for Punxsutawney Phill to retire and be. This just comes next week. February 2nd, I think, is Groundhog Day, and they want to replace Phil with an AI robot for the Groundhog Day. Now, here's the deal. What they want to do is they bring him out, of course, every year. We saw it in Bill Murray's thing, Groundhog.
Yeah, sure.
They hold him up, and Phil, he saw his shadow. He didn't. It says every February 2nd in the town of Punxsutawney, located near Pittsburgh. The legend says that if the furry rodent sees his shadow, there will be 6 more weeks of winter. If not, spring comes early. Thousands of people gather for the annual event, which has taken place as far back as the late 1800s. Now,
shut it down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here's the deal. This has got to be 1 day or 2 days out of the year, unless, of course, you're Bill Murray,
right?
Which, of course, it happens 100 times. No, but the point is that this is one in Punxsutawney. I don't think that this is a destination place, except this 1 day out of the year. That's my guess.
My guess is that the groundhogs are treated very well.
I would imagine. Well, they're in
celebrities.
They are, in fact, for what it's worth. I don't know if they're brought in or whatever it is, but they don't reach down to the ground and get this thing. It's in a cage.
Pull it out of that hole.
Yeah, no.
Did you see what de Blasio dropped it a few years back?
Oh, is that right? Well, you know what happened also. The other thing. So what was he doing down from New York?
I don't know.
Well, the other thing is, in the movie, that groundhog almost bit what's his name's finger off.
Well, that surprised me. It's a dang wild animal.
Yeah, that's right, wild animal. Okay. The other thing I've got here, the only other thing I've got, so we're coming here to the end. America's priciest home is finally getting its finishing touches. 7 years after it started on working on The One, this is a 100,000 square foot home in Bel Air.
Right.
Movie producer Niall, whatever it is, says he's just about ready to test it on the market for $500 million.
Yeah, they've been trying to pitch that thing. It's a beautiful piece of property.
It is gorgeous. I mean, it is. It's like 10 acres or something.
Yeah, like at the hilltop in Beverly Hills.
That's right. It's got. They talk about the amenities here and everything.
Yeah.
But he says, and of course they asked him. He said, "Well, when you have something that's as rare as the Mona Lisa, you can command any price you want for it." He said.
Didn't get it last time.
Huh?
They've canceled the sale and redone it a couple of times.
Well, not only that, there's 2 things to consider. No matter, you might have something that's as rare as the Mona Lisa, let's say, but there's always a price.
Sure.
I mean,
exactly.
when you see some of this stuff, some of these paintings that went for 30, 40, 50 or $100 million, well, that's the price.
That's the price.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's not like you can ask $1 billion. So anyway, one of the things I did say, the billionaire, another Bel Air spec house, and this is a spec house too, by the way, that briefly was the most expensive home for sale in America, was originally listed by developer Bruce Microwski for $250 million. The 38,000 square foot mansion with wine cellars, pools, bowling alley, helipad, and a candy room, whatever, it sold for $94 million, a 62% price cut.
Yeah.
So you asking and getting is 2 different things.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's just an advertisement, obviously.
No, I know. But what he did say, which I thought was kind of interesting, was when he started it 7 years ago. I mean, the carrying costs on this must be phenomenal.
Oh, they're ridiculous.
I mean, unbelievable. Not forget the taxes and everything else, but I mean, if you have a loan or even just even if it only cost you $100 million to make it, and you sell and you're figuring on getting $500 million, but you're not. So I knocked the price off to $200 million. Okay, but still, the opportunity cost for $100 million, I don't care who you are,
it's a lot. Every so often, I've seen the article where it starts off and says $500 million home sold for $100,000. No, he paid the fee to keep it open.
Yeah,
and that's all that happened.
Yeah,
but. Well, look, the prices of these things are ridiculous. This is inflation is happening. It's happening right now. Your savings are being depleted by the QE, by the inflation of the money supply. Apple is now worth $1.4 trillion. It was $1 trillion like 5 years ago. No, I mean...
No, it was like a year ago.
Okay, a year ago. Exactly. Yeah, I think Apple has gone up 50% in the last year.
Yeah.
So that is inflation. That is the result of inflation. I know you like to be specific about it.
Yeah, not entirely. There's a lot of inflation that goes around on stuff, but Apple actually has earnings
Oh yeah. But what I mean is that there's a bunch of free cash out there, more so than there would be normally if the interest rates were allowed to fluctuate naturally.
Oh, that's true.
And that money seems to be flowing into places like the stock market and real estate,
right,
and art. And so you're getting it in those places. Yeah. And so we'll see when it finally gets down to the consumer, and it is a bit. The difference, a half gallon of milk is now $3.
Is that right?
Around here, I'm pretty sure. And so
that's amazing.
And it's gone up like 20 cents in the last 6 months. And the bacon is now $9 for a pound. It was $6 for a pound just a couple years ago. Things like that. So,
but they don't count in the core food
determination. Yeah. So to me, this is the huge worry, and this is whatever happens in the election. To me, it's just not even the big deal, because whenever the crash happens, that is good. Whoever is in charge when the crash happens is going to get blamed, and everybody is talking about Trump as if he's a conservative, and he's clearly not. If you look at the taxing and spending that he's been doing. And so, but conservatism and capitalism will get the blame if Trump is at the helm when the crash happens. It's almost worth voting for Bernie now and letting the socialists take it on the chin, and then coming back in with a strong capitalist next time.
Well, you can bet, as they all do. I mean, even Maduro blames the United States for his problems down in Venezuela, and
but it'll be hard to argue against if everybody comes out. If everybody's There's a lot of people who are jumping up and down saying Trump is a conservative, and that he's a conservative, and the economy is fantastic, and they're just missing it. The economy is not fantastic.
Well, there was an agency that came out recently that has projected $1 trillion deficits for as far as the eye can see.
Right. And that has been going on since George W. Bush instituted it, and they realized, what do we got to lose? If he can pass $1 trillion deficit, then we can also, and they have ever since then.
I don't know if George was involved.
George was. He was there for the first $800 billion bailout.
Oh, right at the end of his term.
Exactly.
Okay.
He was the guy that they went to and said, we need a check. And we need it, and they said, how much? And Geithner and those guys said, a really, really big check. That's all. That's really what they said. They picked $800 billion because it was a really big number. That's what they said.
But it wasn't $1 trillion.
No, but it was $800. It was enough to float the banks, to foam the runway, to make sure that there was liquidity in the market, no matter what happened in the foreclosure crisis, and the credit default swap situation. And so, and obviously we're still in that economy.
Yeah.
We're still in the pumping economy, and
and the Fed's as Peter will tell you.
Peter Schiff?
Yeah, Schiff will tell you that don't get him mixed up with the other.
Yeah, with Adam Schiff. Yeah. I know, I did that last week.
Oh my God.
Anyway, Peter, listen to Peter. He's got great stuff on the economy.
He does. Okay, well anyway, that's we're time.
Look at that. Woo!
I got some stuff that'll be here for Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Hope you had a little fun.
I was interested to see how many people were dumped on Kobe.
Dumped on him? What do you mean?
Well, everybody was saying, it was tragedy that he and his daughter and all those people died. But some other people came out and said, well, you don't forget about the rape charges that were,
Yeah. But he was acquitted, right? I mean,
of course he was. But I mean, the whole point is, what does it take? What comes off with people when they do something like that? Here's a guy who was a hero to a lot of people.
Right.
And with charity and everything else. And then you have to come up with something that's really bad. Why waste your time?
Well, I think it's clickbait, but I mean, to me, if you're acquitted, then you get to be treated as if it never happened. And I'm sorry to the accuser if it really did happen, but you should have proved your case. You don't get to ride.
Did anybody though ever think that what's his name didn't kill his wife and
OJ?
Yeah.
Well, no.
He was acquitted.
That's true. That is true. But we all treated him as though he was acquitted. I mean, he's on Twitter now. You know
that right?
Oh yeah, you can tune into OJ's thoughts on the universe right now.
Didn't he back in jail? Or
No,
He's out.
He went back and then he got back out.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so he's like a normal person now, and that's basically how we treat it. Even though that entire trial was a sham, but
All right.
that's what it was. And Dershowitz was the guy on there. He was,
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm Counselor Curtis. This has been the Jimmy Doane Show. Join us again Sunday, the 2nd, I think it'll be, right?
Yes.
And we'll see you then.
February is a long month.
29.
Yep.